I'm often asked about 360, and very specifically, what key things should we be thinking about if we're going to be introducing 360 into an organization? And really, it's three things. If we can get these three things right, then you're really setting the seed for a good outcome. So the three things generally are your timing, making sure we're allowing enough time, but not too much time. Then the other part of it is to make sure the purpose is absolutely clear, or why this 360 is being used. And thirdly, it's for the 360 not to be a one-off. It's to have a greater purpose. It's to enable some other things to happen. So to look at those three things then, in terms of timing, normally we would suggest allow a couple of weeks for communications. It's really important to set the scene, allay any fears, and being clear with people around why the data is going to be captured and how it's going to be used, and really the benefits it's for them. It's also to make sure that if you are being asked to provide feedback, that there are some ground rules as to why you're being asked to provide feedback, and some of the anonymity and confidentiality kind of issues that always present themselves, especially when individuals are asked to provide feedback on their managers. So again, within timing, we would normally suggest maybe 4 to 6 weeks to allow people to complete the assessments or the questionnaires that you're asking them to complete. We say 4 to 6 weeks because holiday periods and illness often get in the way. Typically, if you're presenting somebody with a 30 or 40 question questionnaire, it should take them maybe 15 minutes, but life gets in the way, and diaries and schedules, etc. And then the next part of it, of course, is, well, completing the questionnaire is really just the beginning of all of this. It's the feedback at the end. It's how long should you leave it before actually you find out people what they got or their scores. And we would say really must get to that within 2 weeks. You mustn't let people worry or be concerned about the reports that have been created about them, or whether they're secret or anything like that. So really, from a timing perspective, you're looking at around 8 weeks from start to finish, and be swift in terms of getting the reports to people and having that feedback conversation. So that's really timing. In terms of purpose, I mentioned about being very clear about why the data is being used. There's nothing more toxic in a 360 for people to believe that they're being rated, and that rating is going to be used for developmental purpose when actually it's not. When it's going to be used for pay and reward or problem people or anything like that. So, if we're thinking of using 360 and we're going to allow other people to get excited about the numbers, then, it's a real health warning around whether you should really be using 360 for that at all. Then the other part of it is to be congruent with the purpose, for the questionnaire to be congruent with the purpose. So, for example, if we're positioning a 360 in terms of leadership development, then we shouldn't really be asking many questions around management capability, because that's not very congruent with leadership and developing leadership. It's a different set of questions. The other part of it is to look at the questionnaire and your purpose, and also the capability of your managers, and to say, are we all lined up in terms of being able to have a coaching conversation based on the feedback? So, for example, if somebody gets very high scores against a question, is that good? What do we do? What's the kind of conversation we might have with that individual? Or if an individual gets very low scores, where do you want the conversation to go? Are we asking the question in a way which would allow a feedback conversation to happen at high and low end in terms of score range? If we're not, then we have to ask why we're asking the question, because we can't really take any action on it, and you could end up leaving the individual with low scores against a question and actually very difficult to really do anything about it. With the purpose, it's not just the organization requires you to do this or to do the other. It's about transferring some accountability back to the individual. The 360 typically and almost invariably includes an element of self-analysis and self-reflection, where you are completing the questionnaire about yourself and behaviors that you are self-aware of. I think part of the quid pro quo here is that if you are going to go through a 360 and you are going to have the organization spend its time providing feedback for you, then there is some accountability for you to really take some action on this. So the purpose, of course, is maybe it's about leadership development, but also actually it's about the actions the individual takes thereafter to improve resulting from the feedback they've got. So be very clear that it's not a free, nice-to-have, indulgent process. It's not a process of judgment and misuse of data. It's much more around what it is we want people to do and what the organization is going to do with the data after it. And finally, it's the integrating it. So we do talk to many organizations that talk about tactical or kind of one-off 360s. They have a place and a purpose, but they're really missing the point in a lot of cases. If we can integrate 360 into a broader talent management strategy, into a broader leadership development or coaching program, then we have a much greater ability to generate an increased return on investment. After all, if we've got hundreds of people completing feedback questionnaires, the organization really does need to get some kind of return from it. And if it's a bit of a once-off, then organizations are automatically limiting the return they're going to get from something like that. So when we're thinking about 360, is there a broader picture? It might help create a bit more impetus with the 360, give it a greater sense of purpose and meaning. And can we find ways of integrating this into a current program or a future program?